So glad you could join me today for PJ's Storytime. I have another great tale I'd like to share with you. In the garden in front of a little cottage grew 2 rose trees. One bore white roses, the other red. Here a widow lived. Because her 2 daughters were so much like the rose trees, she called one Snow White and the other Rose Red. Snow White helped her mother with the work, while Rose Red chased butterflies and gathered the flowers in the fields. One evening in winter, when a snowstorm was sending the flakes whirling through the air, the mother said, "Snow White, close the shutters while Rose Red fixes the fire, and then we'll sit and read." Beside them on the floor lay their pet lamb, and on the high back of the mother's chair perched their white dove, its head under its wing. Soon there was a knock on the door, and the mother said, "Open the door, Rose Red. Perhaps a traveler seeks shelter." But when the door swung open, there stood a bear. Rose Red screamed as he poked his black head through the doorway. The pet lamb bleated in fright, and the dove flapped its wings, while Snow White clung to Rose Red in dismay. But the bear said, "Don't be afraid. I am half frozen, and I wish to warm myself at your fire." "Come in, poor bear," spoke up the mother. "Daughters, the bear will not hurt you. He's both good and honest." Gradually, Snow White and Rose Red lost their fear, and when the bear asked them to beat the snow out of his fur, they thought it great fun to brush him until his coat was thoroughly dry. Indeed, they grew to be great friends with the bear, tugging at his fur, pummeling him and rolling him over the floor. When the play went too far, the bear would say, "Snow White and Rose Red, don't beat your friend silly." All winter long, the bear came to the cottage every evening and would play with the children. In fact, the door was never closed until he had come in. One morning, as spring was coming, the bear said, "Snow White, I must go away and not come again the whole summer long." "Oh, bear dear, where are you going, and why?" asked Snow White. "To the woods. There I have treasure I must protect from the wicked dwarves. When the warm spring sun softens the earth, they come through to steal what they can." So Snow White unbarred the cottage door, and as the bear went out, she thought she saw a glimpse of glittering gold under his fur as it caught on the latch. But she was not sure. A short time after this, Snow White and Rose Red went to the woods to gather wood for the fire and came upon a great tree that had fallen. They saw something jumping up and down on the long trunk, and when they came nearer, saw it was a dwarf with a wrinkled face and a beard a yard long. He glared at them and screamed, "What are you standing there for? Can't you come and help me?" "What are you doing?" asked Rose Red. "Stupid," shouted the dwarf. "I wanted to split this tree trunk to get chips for our fire. I was driving in a wedge when it sprung out, and the tree closed so quickly it caught my beautiful white beard. I am stuck fast here. You both just stand and laugh." And the more he talked, the more angry he grew. Snow White and Rose Red hurried to his aid, but work as they would, they couldn't get the beard loose. "I will run and bring somebody," said Rose Red at last, at which the dwarf shouted, "You blockheads! What's the use of calling anyone else? Have you no better plan?" "Just be a little patient," said Snow White calmly. and taking her scissors out of her pocket, she cut off the end of the beard. When the dwarf found himself free, he quickly seized a bag of gold hidden among the roots of the tree, slung it over his shoulder, and hastened off, mumbling, "Wretches, they are to cut off a piece of my splendid beard." It was not long after this that Snow White and Rose Red went to the brook to catch some fish for their dinner. As they reached the stream, they saw what they supposed was a large grasshopper, but as they ran after it, they saw it was the old dwarf. "What are you going to do?" asked Rose Red. "Surely you are not going to jump into the river," said Snow White. "No such fool as that," snapped the dwarf. "Don't you see that my fish is trying to drag me in?" True enough, the dwarf had been sitting on the bank fishing, and the wind had entangled his beard and the fishing line. When the big fish took his hook, the dwarf was unable to land him, and in spite of his efforts, he was being pulled closer and closer to the water's edge. The girls found his beard and fishing line in a hopeless tangle, and so once more Snow White took out her scissors and cut the beard to free the dwarf. But he stamped around in a temper, shouting, "You call yourselves polite, but you cut my beard again. It was bad enough the first time you cut it off, but now you have cut off the best of it." Then he lifted up a bag of pearls and disappeared behind a stone. Not long after this, the two sisters went to the village and saw a huge bird circling above them. As it settled on a rock close by, they ran forward to find the eagle had pounced on the dwarf they had seen twice before and would have carried him away had not the sisters fought off the bird. "Useless creatures you are," he shouted ungratefully. "See, my coat is torn in shreds." Then, taking up a bag of precious stones, he disappeared under the rock. This time the girls did not wonder at his temper, but they were surprised when they came home to find him pouring his precious stones on the ground. The sun made the gems sparkle, so the girls stood gazing at them admiringly. When he discovered them, he screamed in rage, "Why stand gaping so?" Just then, a black bear trotted out of the woods, growling, so the dwarf leaped up in fright. But before he could reach his retreat under the rocks, the bear was upon him. "Dear Mr. Bear, spare me," he pleaded. "I'll give you all my treasure. A poor little fellow like me would give you no pleasure. See, those two wicked girls would make tender eating for you." But the bear gave the dwarf one blow with his paw, and he fell dead. "Snow White, Rose Red, don't run away," called the bear. And suddenly there stood a handsome man, all dressed in gold. "I am the king's son," he said. "I was doomed by that miserable dwarf who stole my treasure to roam as a bear until his death freed me." Then Snow White married the prince, and Rose Red married his brother. And that is how it came that all the years their mother lived, she had two rose trees near the window, one bearing the finest of red roses, and the other the sweetest of white ones. The end.